That's right. The main reason for coming to Morden for the Corn and Apple Festival, a carnival. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that there is going to be a roller coaster here. Might have come up here, done the hour and a half drive for nothing. But there's only one way to find out, and that's to explore the grounds a little bit here. So let's see if Wonder Shows has brought a coaster to ride. I'm Gary, and this is Coasting with Culture. I like to combine theme park visits and riding roller coasters with various cultural experiences around the world. This is the beginning of the Great Canadian Coaster Run, with stops in multiple provinces of Canada, including Manitoba, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Quebec. The first stop of this trip is to Winnipeg with the hopes of finding a couple of coasters and checking out the town of Morden's Corn and Apple Festival, then going to the complex known as the Forks, a shopping and dining district that was a significant part of central Canadian trade. After taking that Western Canada road trip, it was time to head back to good old Seattle-Tacoma International Airport for this next journey. This trip would include several flights because of all the different parts of Canada I would be visiting. I kind of feel like I'm cheating on a girlfriend since I'm flying with Delta today instead of flying with Alaska like I normally do. Along with the lower cost, Delta offered service into the trip's first location with a connection through Minneapolis. Getting to Minneapolis would be fairly quick and easy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to welcome you to Minneapolis, where the local time is 8:33. On behalf of Delta, thank you again for sharing your journey with us. We've enjoyed having you on board and hope to see you again soon.
Successfully made it to Minneapolis, and now it's time to hop over to the next gate to get to the flight for Winnipeg. In about half the time of the Minneapolis flight, we landed in Winnipeg.
It's our pleasure to welcome you to Winnipeg, where the local time is 11:37 p.m. On behalf of Delta, thank you again for sharing your journey with us. We've enjoyed having you on board, and hope to see you again soon with future Delta flight.
I feel like I always have better luck with getting upgrades in rental cars than I do with flights. It seems to be that every so often I'll reserve an economy car or a compact and I end up getting a full-sized, or one case it was a minivan or SUV. You know, if I could get upgrades on my flights as often as I do rental cars, I'd be a happy camper. But, you know, take what you can, right? That landing into Winnipeg today, though, the wind is actually pretty heavy tonight. The plane was definitely doing a lot of this coming into the airport today. But made it to Manitoba. First time in the province of Manitoba and the first time in the city of Winnipeg. So it's about time to head over to the hotel and then call it a night, because tomorrow it's time to go for some coasters. When booking the first night of the trip, there were a few things I didn't realize about this hotel until actually getting there. Okay, that was probably one of the most amusing drives I've ever had to get into a hotel, because quite literally, out the garage, slight left to get onto the main road, turn left around the corner, and then the hotel is right there. I could have just walked over to the hotel and maybe not gotten the rental car tonight, but I think when I looked it up, I found that the price was really negligible, and I thought, screw it. I'll just get the rental car, have it ready to go. so that I can get right on the road in the morning. One thing that is kind of cool about this room is the fact that this room that I'm in overlooks where they park some of the planes that are not in use. And you can see a little bit of the terminal on the side there where they do have some of the planes that are waiting to fly in the morning. So, you know, looking outside, it's a little bit wetter than I'd like it to be to go ride a roller coaster. However, I'm from Seattle. We call this Tuesday. Yeah, it's a little breezy here again this morning. Not sure how conducive this weather's going to be for coaster riding, but we'll find out. Keep my fingers crossed. Since I was back in Canada, there was a stop that I needed to make. As per personal tradition, made the customary stop for one, Tim Hortons. Today we went ahead and got the absolutely delightful maple dip donut. To prove I can eat like a healthy adult, decided to try a new breakfast sandwich that I saw that they have here. It is the Belgian waffle breakfast sandwich. Sausage, egg, and cheese between two Belgian waffles. Pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. One of the neat things I saw inside of this Tim Hortons location was that they had an engraving in the floor that referenced the Lucky Loonie, where the women's Olympic hockey team had a dollar coin from Canada, which they call the loonie, stuck inside of the ice, or it was frozen in the ice, I should say. So I thought it was a neat touch. They actually had a little bit of that Canadian culture in this store. So neat little tribute to their national hockey team. While it was wet and gloomy out, I made a run for a town to the southeast of Winnipeg. And with this part of Manitoba being just to the north of the Dakotas, it reminded me a lot of the drive I made through there just a few months ago. Pulling into town, they have a unique sign to greet you. So this behind me is Bruce, the replica of the largest mosasaur that is located here in the town of Morden, about an hour and a half away from Winnipeg. They have a special fossil discovery center here in Morden. As much fun as it would be to go to the fossil museum, there's actually another reason for coming to Morden today, and that is the Corn and Apple Festival. So I'm on the streets of Morden here in Manitoba, and it appears that the Corn and Apple Festival is a big street fair with a lot of vendors for different types of food and selling specialty merchandise and things like that. It's really kind of a neat thing because the whole street is pretty well packed, and so they've closed off this entire block essentially for these stands and things like that. But there's one thing in particular that I'm looking for based on some research, and that's a possible roller coaster. So let's see if we can find it. At the far end of the street where the festival was held, there was a carnival with rides presented by the Canadian company Wonder Shows. That's right, the main reason for coming to Morden for the Corn and Apple Festival, a carnival. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that there is going to be a roller coaster here. Might have come up here, done the hour and a half drive for nothing. But there's only one way to find out, and that's to explore the grounds a little bit here. So let's see if Wonder Shows has brought a coaster to ride. There was a variety of rides that were pretty standard for carnivals, and the selection of rides covered about a block and a half of the street along with a smaller parking lot. It was within this small parking lot that I found what I was hoping for, a shameless coaster credit. Got the credit. Yes! So one thing I forgot to mention for this trip is that before starting, I was sitting at 983 different roller coasters ridden worldwide. So that meant that for this trip, if I rode 17, then I'd be able to hit my 1,000th roller coaster on this trip. Now that would be one of the 17, so now it's down to 16 to go before 1,000. So should be able to do that pretty easily, especially because we're going to Canada's Wonderland and some of the other bigger parks, and then there's a number of small credit stops as well. So I'm feeling pretty good about hitting 1,000 on this trip, especially by the time we get to Canada's Wonderland. One of the things I found out about this place as I was looking up information about the festival is that they offer these free bus tours through the town of Morden. Unfortunately, I don't quite have enough time for it today because I got another stop before heading back to the airport to fly to Toronto, but it would be really, really neat to have had a little bit more time to be able to take advantage of one of these tours to learn more about this town. Didn't feel appropriate to come to an apple festival without trying something up there, so try some apple cider. Oh, that's tasty. It's good stuff.
There's another tradition of this festival that brings visitors every year to this Manitoba town.
Seems to be that an annual tradition of the Corn and Apple Festival here in Morden is that everybody can come and get a free cob of corn inside of this square here. They've got the people taking the cobs and separating them from the stalk, and then they're going to go ahead and cook them in that giant vat back there, and then eventually, once they're ready, they'll start distributing them out to people to eat.
Based on the lineup of people waiting to get their free corn, they'll need to prepare a lot of it. And they had the volunteer workforce to do it. After seeing a little bit of the festival, I made my way to the main motivation for visiting Winnipeg. And that was the smaller amusement park called Tinkertown. When I pulled up to it though, it appeared that the weather had doomed this stop.
It's closed. Yeah, I came all the way to Winnipeg to visit Tinkertown here. This was a place I was originally going to include as part of the trip to Minnesota, but I found out it was only open on weekends, and everything had really been planned out for the rest of Minnesota at that point already, so didn't get a chance to do anything with it. Come here today, and the gate's locked up, and I'm thinking that it's because of the wind and slightly rainy weather here that they probably decided not to open up today. Yep, it's a bummer. Missed credit. Gonna have to come back and try another time. But hey, if nothing else, it's another excuse to come back and visit Winnipeg and see a little bit more next time.
While Tinkertown didn't work out as I hoped it would, I was able to use the time that I had left to check out a popular Winnipeg stop.
So I made it to a place called The Forks here in Winnipeg off of the Red River. And this is a historic dining and shopping district, but in the past this was a sort of distribution center for items that came by rail into Winnipeg from the east, and things would be distributed, placed onto wagons or carried by horseback to different locations on the prairies to be delivered. Really fascinating to see that they converted this old train depot into this kind of entertainment place, this shopping, dining center, and so I'm going to take a walk around inside, get a chance to explore a little bit of one of the buildings before it's time to head over to the airport to fly to Toronto.
In the center of this building, there's a fairly large food court with multiple restaurants, and they also had a bar with all kinds of beer and wine to drink. I chose the Winnipeg Brew Works Crystal Weizen, which was a nice tasty brew, and combined it with a late lunch from the neighboring Simon's Steak Shop, choosing the Philly steak sandwich. Unlike the thin sliced meat on a hoagie roll that you would normally think of, this was served on a bun, and the steak was cut into larger pieces. While exploring the side halls away from the food court, there was a smell that I simply couldn't ignore.
The Tallgrass Prairie Bread Company right behind me here offers something that is called the Tallgrass Cinnamon Bun. It smells really good. You could really get that cinnamon smell when you walk by the place, so it feels like it's necessary to try it out.
They use a whole grain for the dough rather than a white flour used by many other bakeries for cinnamon rolls, and this was excellent.
There was definitely not enough time to really get into the Forks today because unfortunately I really got to make my way back over to the airport so I don't miss my flight to Toronto, but just getting a little snippet of it though was pretty awesome, and I definitely love to come back and see more of it. You know, get a chance to perhaps do the trolley tour, get a chance to walk through the shops a bit more, and just explore more of the entire complex. I still have one last stop before departing from Winnipeg that I want to make before getting to the airport. It's not really something that's an uncommon place, but there's a special connection with it here to Winnipeg. Okay, so naturally the question is going to be asked, why 7-Eleven? What's the big deal about going to 7-Eleven here, Gary? So I learned a while back that Winnipeg is apparently the leading consumer of Slurpees worldwide. They consume more Slurpees than any other city in the world. Anybody who knows me knows that I love Slurpees. I grew up loving Slurpees as a kid. When we moved to North Carolina, we didn't have 7-Eleven there, and so it was a huge tragedy that we didn't have it available. It was a special treat when I'd come and visit my dad back in Seattle, and then when I'd go up to Virginia to go to Busch Gardens or King's Dominion, there might be a 7-Eleven along the way, and I could take advantage of it to get a Slurpee then. And now that I live in Washington again, and they also had them in Florida, it's not as big a deal, but I'm not going to lie. I still have a soft spot in my heart for Slurpees. And so coming to the place that consumes the most Slurpees of all, it was only fitting to go ahead and get one myself. So cheers. And not only that, but they had the special Dr. Pepper flavor. So bonus points to them.
After spending the day between Morden and Winnipeg, it was back to the airport for the next flight of this trip. Since I was flying domestically in Canada, I would book with one of their domestic airlines, WestJet, for the remaining flights between Canadian cities, until I would head back to Seattle at the end. While I've been to Windsor in Ontario before, this would be to parts of the province I've yet to see, starting with getting to Toronto Pearson Airport.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Toronto. Local time is currently 9:41 p.m. Thank you so much for clicking out the travel plans today. We wish you a warm welcome home, a great stay in the Toronto area, or a better pleasant journey to your next destination. Thank you so much for choosing WestJet. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
So my buddy Al just literally posted on Facebook that Toronto Pearson is a nightmare, and I might be starting to see a little bit wide as I wait to get my rental car here. Turns out that if you do a rental car through an off-lot location as opposed to those that are at the airport, then you have to take a train from the terminal to get to a station called Viscount. And then when you get to the Viscount station, you have to find this phone so you can go ahead and use it to call the car rental agency. They'll come and pick you up. And then you just got to kind of wait and hope they come and get you. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully they'll show up here soon. We'll be ready to roll. It was a fun day going to Winnipeg. I will say that it was kind of a bummer that Tinkertown was closed, but you know, with this seeking out of roller coasters and credits and things like that, it's bound to happen where a ride's going to be closed or a park might be closed that day. At least there's a good indicator that there'll be a chance to come back, plus more of an excuse to go back to Winnipeg. But now I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit wound down here so I can get to bed, because tomorrow's going to be a full day going around Ontario and seeking out more coasters.
Thank you for watching this Coastin' with Culture video. If you'd like to see future videos about combining theme park visits and cultural experiences, please consider clicking that subscribe button down below. You'll also find Coastin' with Culture on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, plus more content at coastingwithculture.com. Until next time, take care and safe travels.